Welcome back to chapters 7 and 8, Flying, or Sort of. And this, once again, is the book 2 of Mia Mayhem, Learns to Fly by Kara West, illustrated by Elisa Hernandez. There it's sorting its way back to... So the cat got out of the cage, and the dogs are chasing it again, but Eddie has a tracker. Eddie is her friend, and now he's seen her in her superhero costume. Flying, or sort of. The tracker led us to Eddie's house. We didn't know if Pax was inside, but Eddie waved at us to follow him. Eddie, I said, if your parents are home, we can't just walk into your house like this. Oh, right, he replied with a laugh. Okay, wait here. I'll check for the dogs. I nodded as Penn started pacing back and forth. Which room is Eddie's? He asked. Penn did not like waiting around. After all, he was a superhero, and he needed to take charge. I pointed to Eddie's open window. We're wasting too much time. I'm going in, Penn declared. No, that's really not a good idea, I said as calmly as possible. Don't worry, I can check this whole place in a flash, Penn bragged. Then he took a few steps back, pushed off, and flew it into Eddie's room. Ugh, working with this kid sure wasn't easy. But now that we were a team, there was only one thing to do. I flew through the open window and tumbled right into Eddie, who was gathering extra leashes and treats. Yikes, Eddie cried. You said you were going to wait outside. Oh, I know, but someone was getting antsy, I said, as I shot Penn a sharp look. It scared Eddie there. Well, the dogs aren't here, said Eddie, but I thought we could use some supplies for when we do find them. Great idea, Eddie, I exclaimed. Penn studied the room, and then he said, Hey, that's a pretty good idea. What does your tracker say? Eddie held it up and gave it a wave. The dogs are on the move. Then, so are we, said Penn, and he flew out the window. I shrugged. I think he's really excited about finding the dogs. Yeah, I can see that, said Eddie. I'll get my bike and meet you outside. Zing, tracker, tracker. Okay, flies out the window. So excited. I flew back through the window, and a few minutes later, Eddie was out on his mountain bike. According to my tracker, they're heading across town, Eddie declared. To cover the most area, let's split up, Penn suggested. For once, Penn and I agreed on the plan, so we lifted into the air as Eddie raced away on his bike. As I glided along weightlessly, I was so relieved. Flying outside was actually totally awesome, especially because the horrible feeling I usually got in my stomach was gone too. And then I looked down, and that big knot in my stomach came back. The next thing I knew, I lost control and almost crashed into a bird. As I took a turn, I flew through an open office building instead, and somehow I created a huge paper tornado. Luckily, no one saw me, and there was an exit on the other side. That is pretty lucky. Look at that paper tornado. Arg! Bird probably is like, who's that? But this time there was only one place for me to go. Straight into a giant tree. Crash! Oh, Mia, are you okay? Penn asked as he rushed to my side. I nodded as I picked leaves from my hair. I don't think I can do this, Penn, I whispered. Well, I think you can, he said with a smile. Remember what we learned in class? Stay balanced and steady, I replied slowly. Penn reached down and grabbed my hands and helped me up. Now here's something I wish I'd known before we left. Flying in the real world isn't the same as flying in a wind tunnel. There are a lot of unexpected things you got to look out for. But the good news is I learned that when a friend is right next to you, even your biggest fears can disappear. So he's turning out to be pretty nice and supportive. Helping her up. On to chapter 8. Eddie's wild ride. I thought Eddie couldn't fly. Maybe they're talking about his bike. Let's find out. Penn and I zoomed across town. The wind rushing against my face was like nothing I'd ever felt before. The knot in my stomach finally disappeared and I was able to really look around. We passed the post office, the movie theater, and even my favorite ice cream shop, Sprinkles. And from up above, everything I knew so well looked completely different. When I dove a bit lower, I saw Eddie racing down the street. He easily hopped over a curb, pedaled down a slanted pipe, and skidded past a row of trash cans. Clang! Boy, he hit him. Probably knocked the garbage out. But then he started to go down a random alley, and I knew he was in trouble. His tracker must have misled him because he was heading straight into a construction site. Danger, danger. Look at her face. Look out, I yelled over the booming noise of giant vehicles. Luckily, Eddie heard me just in time. He sped over a mountain of dirt, jumped a set of steel frames, and dodged a huge puddle of wet cement. I was so relieved that Eddie was safe, but then I heard him scream, "Ah!" Eddie cried as a crane hook caught him. "Don't worry, Eddie," I yelled as I went into another dive. I swooped down and grabbed Eddie without his bike, and then I looked over and saw that Penn had caught it. Whew, that was a close call. She got Eddie, and Penn got the bike. I'm so glad I've gotten used to flying because it looks like even great bike riders could use a pair of superheroes. Looks like it, huh? And that's the end of Chapter 8, and that's where we stop today. Next time, Chapter 9, The Final Destination. If you like this book, you may want to check these out at your library.